In the quiet villages of Okinawa, Japan, there are men and women who wake up each morning in their 80s, 90s, even beyond 100, and still move with a sense of energy and purpose that many of us hope to carry into our later years. They garden, cook, laugh with friends, and walk to the market. The fascinating part is this: they're not just living long, they're living well. And one of the strongest threads tying these lives together is surprisingly simple: what they eat every single day. Here's something that might surprise you. The average life expectancy in Japan is among the highest in the world, hovering in the mid-80s. But in Okinawa, a region often studied by scientists, the number of centenarians, people who live past 100, is far higher than average. Researchers have been asking for decades, what's their secret? Genetics play a role, yes, but when studies compared their DNA to people in other parts of the world, the difference wasn't enough to explain this extraordinary longevity. What stood out most was their daily habits, and food is at the center of it. Now let's connect this to neuroscience and physiology. The foods you eat don't just fuel your muscles and organs, they also regulate the very chemistry of your brain. How much dopamine you produce, how your neurons handle inflammation, how resilient your memory circuits remain over time. Every meal you eat is essentially sending instructions to your cells, telling them whether to repair and strengthen or to break down and age faster. That's why what we eat every day has such a direct impact on how long and how well we live. In this talk, we're going to explore 6 daily foods and food principles that Japan's longest-lived doctors and elders consistently rely on. These are not exotic superfoods that require special ordering. They're everyday choices: vegetables, grains, teas, and preparations, supported by decades of research. We'll look at how each food works in the body, what's happening in your brain when you eat it, and most importantly, how you can start including it in your own routine. By the end, you'll have a practical, science-based toolkit, not just for adding years to your life, but for adding life to your years. If you walk into a traditional Japanese home in the morning, you might notice the aroma of something savory and earthy simmering in the kitchen: miso soup. For many, this is not just comfort food, it's a daily ritual that has been practiced for generations. What's fascinating is that miso, along with natto and tofu, represents a cornerstone of the Japanese diet, and it provides a clear link between everyday eating and extraordinary longevity. Let's break down why. Soybeans in their raw form are hard to digest, but through fermentation and preparation, they transform into nutritional powerhouses. Miso, a fermented soybean paste, is rich in probiotics, beneficial bacteria that help regulate the gut microbiome. Natto, a sticky and somewhat pungent dish made from fermented soybeans, delivers not only probiotics but also a unique enzyme called natto kinase, which has been studied for its cardiovascular benefits, including reducing clot formation and improving blood flow. Tofu, while not fermented, is a clean source of plant-based protein that supports muscle maintenance, especially important as we age. Now, from the lens of neuroscience and physiology, why does this matter? The gut microbiome is often called the second brain. Trillions of bacteria in your intestines communicate directly with your nervous system through the vagus nerve. They help regulate serotonin production, influence inflammation, and even shape decision-making and mood. By eating fermented soy foods daily, Japanese elders are essentially strengthening this gut-brain connection, ensuring stable mood, sharper cognition, and better emotional regulation. Flavones, another key component of soy, also play a role. These plant compounds act like gentle modulators of hormone systems. For women, they can ease the decline of estrogen levels with age, supporting bone density and cardiovascular function. For men, they contribute to cardiovascular health without disrupting testosterone in meaningful ways. The larger point is balance. Soy provides a nutritional buffer against the gradual shifts that happen in midlife and beyond. Here's where it becomes practical. Adding fermented soy into your diet doesn't require adopting an entirely new cuisine. A simple tool is to start your day with miso soup. Just a teaspoon of miso paste in hot water with some scallions and seaweed creates a probiotic-rich, savory breakfast addition. Another option is natto, which can be mixed with rice or vegetables. It has a strong flavor, so it may take some acclimation, but even a small serving a few times a week carries measurable health benefits. Tofu can be used in stir-fries, soups, or even as a protein substitute in Western dishes. The key is regularity, not excess. What's happening in your brain when you make this a habit? Stable gut bacteria reduce systemic inflammation, which lowers the risk of neurodegeneration. Better serotonin regulation through the gut-brain axis means mood stability and resilience to stress. Even small daily servings are enough to shift these systems in your favor. Think of fermented soy as maintenance for your internal wiring, keeping the circuits clear, the connections strong, and the system balanced. And if you're finding these insights useful so far, this is the perfect moment to pause and invite you to join our growing community here. If this perspective on food and longevity sparks new ideas for your own health, consider subscribing. That way you won't miss the practical science and tools we'll continue to explore together. Returning to the science, the takeaway is clear. Foods like miso, natto, and tofu aren't magic. They're consistent, daily inputs that create small advantages at the cellular level. Advantages that, when compounded over decades, add up to longer, healthier lives. Just as the Japanese elders aren't thinking in terms of biohacks, but rather in terms of tradition, you can integrate these foods as a simple, grounding ritual. So the question for you is, what small step could you take this week to add one fermented soy food into your rotation? Because sometimes it's the smallest additions to our daily rhythm that leave the deepest impact on how we age. When most of us think of vegetables, we picture what grows in the soil: carrots, spinach, broccoli. But in Japan, some of the most powerful longevity foods come from the ocean. Seaweeds like wakame, nori, and kombu are staples used in soups, broths, sushi rolls, and even as snacks. At first glance, they may seem like a minor side dish, but the truth is, these mineral-rich plants are quietly working at the foundation of long-term health. One of the standout benefits of seaweed is its iodine content. Iodine is essential for thyroid function, the gland that sets the pace for your metabolism, energy, and even mood. Without enough iodine, the thyroid slows down, leading to fatigue, weight gain, and brain fog. Seaweed offers a natural, balanced source of iodine, unlike the erratic levels you'd get from supplements. This ensures the metabolic system stays tuned even as the body ages. Seaweed also delivers magnesium, iron, calcium, and a host of trace minerals that modern diets often lack. These minerals aren't just extras, they're cofactors that enzymes in your body need to perform everyday tasks. Magnesium, for example, is required for over 300 biochemical reactions, including those that regulate sleep and stress. Without it, neurons fire less efficiently and muscles recover more slowly. By making seaweed part of daily meals, Japanese elders are essentially topping up on the raw materials their cells need to function smoothly. There's another fascinating layer. Seaweed is rich in unique polysaccharides, like fukoidan, that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory and immune-supportive effects. Some research even suggests fukoidan helps regulate cell turnover, a process tied to cancer prevention and healthy aging. And because seaweed contains soluble fiber, it also feeds beneficial gut bacteria, amplifying the gut-brain connection we discussed earlier with fermented foods. So, how do you bring this into your own life without overhauling your entire diet? A simple tool is to add nori sheets to your snacks, wrap them around vegetables or rice, or crumble them into salads. Use wakame in soups, or add a strip of kombu when cooking beans or broth. These small additions carry a surprising density of nutrients. The key is consistency, a little bit, often rather than a lot at once. From the perspective of the nervous system, the payoff is clear. Adequate minerals like magnesium and iodine stabilize neuronal communication, help regulate neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin, and keep your energy systems running efficiently. Think of seaweed as a natural conductor, making sure the symphony of signals in your brain and body stays in rhythm. And before we go further, let me pause for a moment. If this perspective on mindful, science-backed eating is resonating with you, go ahead and tap the like button. It helps more people discover this kind of content, and it strengthens the community we're building together here. Returning to the science, seaweed also connects back to something deeply cultural in Japan. The integration of food with environment. For coastal communities, eating from the sea wasn't a choice, it was survival. Yet what began as necessity evolved into tradition, and now into one of the nutritional cornerstones of Japanese longevity. That lesson applies to all of us. Aligning what we eat with what naturally sustains us often creates the best outcomes for health. So here's a reflection. What's one simple way you can bring the ocean to your plate this week? Maybe it's adding a sheet of nori to your lunch, or experimenting with miso soup that includes wakame. Small, repeatable choices like these don't just add nutrients, they create rhythms of nourishment that, over years, shape how gracefully we age. When researchers study the diets of long-lived populations in Japan, one detail often stands out. Unlike in many Western countries, where people might eat a large serving of fish once or twice a week, Japanese elders typically consume small portions more frequently. Think a few bites of grilled mackerel at breakfast or sardines simmered with vegetables at dinner. This approach, modest amounts, repeated regularly, turns fish into a quiet but powerful anchor of their diet. The science behind this is compelling. Fatty fish, such as sardines, mackerel, and salmon, are among the richest natural sources of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA and EPA. These fats are essential for brain health. Neurons rely on DHA to keep their membranes flexible, which is critical for communication between brain cells. EPA, on the other hand, has strong anti-inflammatory effects, calming overactive immune responses that can damage tissue over time. Together, these compounds help preserve memory, stabilize mood, and protect against cognitive decline. What's fascinating is how consistent intake matters more than occasional large doses. Studies show that people who consume fish regularly have lower risks of dementia, depression, and cardiovascular disease. A famous study in the journal Lancet found that populations with frequent fish consumption had significantly lower rates of depression. The reason ties back to brain chemistry. Omega-3 cysts directly influence serotonin and dopamine signaling, the neurotransmitters that shape mood, motivation, and emotional balance. There's also a heart connection. Omega-3 cysts lower triglycerides, improve blood vessel flexibility, and reduce the likelihood of dangerous clot formation. This is one reason Japanese populations, even those who eat rice and carbohydrates daily, have historically had lower rates of heart disease compared to Western populations. It's not just what they avoid, it's the consistent addition of protective foods like fish. So, how can you make this actionable? Here's a simple protocol. Instead of thinking of fish as a main course to eat once in a while, treat it as a side, a small portion several times per week. A can of sardines with whole grain toast, a few ounces of grilled salmon alongside vegetables or mackerel mixed into rice. You don't need large servings. In fact, smaller, regular amounts are more sustainable and align better with what the research supports. Now let's connect this back to the brain. When you eat fish consistently, omega-3 cysts integrate into the membranes of your neurons. Over time, this improves the efficiency of neural signaling, like upgrading the insulation on electrical wires. That's why memory feels sharper, mood feels steadier, and recovery from stress is smoother. You might not notice the effect overnight, but accumulated over years, it makes a profound difference. There's also a psychological layer to consider. Eating fish in small portions makes it easier to view food as nourishment rather than indulgence. In Japanese culture, meals often emphasize variety over volume. A plate might include a little fish, some vegetables, miso soup, and rice, none overwhelming on its own, but together providing balance. This mindset reduces overeating and helps regulate appetite, something neuroscience tells us is critical for long-term metabolic health. So here's a question for reflection. Instead of asking, how can I eat more fish? Ask, how can I eat fish more often? In smaller amounts, that shift changes the habit from occasional effort to sustainable rhythm. And as we've seen again and again in longevity research, it's not the one-time choice that shapes your lifespan. It's the repeated, daily choices that accumulate into resilience, energy, and vitality over the decades. Here's something most people miss when they think about Japanese longevity. It's not just what they eat, it's how they eat. The act of eating itself is treated as a ritual, not a rush necessity. Meals are often structured around balance and intention. Small portions are placed in separate bowls and plates, encouraging variety and appreciation of each food. This slows the pace of eating, gives the brain time to register fullness, and keeps digestion smooth. It's the opposite of piling everything on one oversized plate and eating until you can't move. One of the most fascinating traditions is hara hachi bu, a Confucian-inspired saying from Okinawa. It means eating until you are 80% full. By leaving that small margin, people avoid the cycle of overeating, blood sugar spikes, and weight gain that often comes with modern diets. Over a lifetime, this small habit has a massive impact on metabolic health, cardiovascular function, and longevity. Another piece of the ritual is gratitude. Saying thanks before and after meals is not just cultural politeness. Modern neuroscience shows that gratitude shifts the nervous system toward parasympathetic activity, the rest and digest state. Eating while calm improves nutrient absorption and reduces inflammation, compared to eating in a stressed, rushed state where blood flow is diverted away from digestion. And there's the rhythm of meals. In many long-lived Japanese communities, people eat at consistent times each day, rarely snacking late at night. This aligns with circadian biology. Our metabolism works best when it follows the sun. Eating late, especially heavy or processed foods, has been linked to poorer sleep, impaired glucose tolerance, and accelerated aging. So the power of ritual and mindful eating isn't just tradition, it's a health protocol backed by both culture and science. When food is eaten slowly, in balance, with gratitude, and in tune with natural rhythms, the body runs smoother for longer. One of the most striking lessons from Japan's oldest communities is that longevity isn't only about food or exercise. It's also about connection and purpose. In Okinawa, this sense of meaning is captured by a single word, Ikigai. It translates roughly to a reason for being, the thing that makes you want to wake up in the morning. Ikigai doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. For one person, it may be tending a garden. For another, it could be caring for grandchildren, teaching a skill, or simply gathering with neighbors over tea. The point is having a thread of purpose that runs through daily life, something that ties you to others and gives your days structure. Community plays a massive role here. In Okinawa, people often belong to Maai, a lifelong social circle that provides support, companionship, and financial help when needed. These groups aren't just for socializing, they act as a safety net that reduces stress, loneliness, and insecurity. Modern studies confirm that strong social bonds lower cortisol levels, strengthen the immune system, and even reduce the risk of heart disease and dementia. And then there's the cultural respect for elders. Instead of being pushed aside, older adults in Japan are often honored for their wisdom and experience. This sense of being valued reinforces identity and purpose, which psychologists link directly to resilience and mental health in later years. When you add it all up, Ikigai, Moai, and cultural respect, you see why these communities thrive. They've built systems that keep people engaged, connected, and motivated for life. Purpose is a fuel that keeps the heart and mind strong long after the body slows down. If you step back and look at the patterns we've uncovered, you'll notice something. Longevity isn't about a single superfood, a miracle supplement, or a rigid diet. It's about the integration of daily choices, small, sustainable behaviors that compound over decades. The Japanese doctors who live well past 100 aren't doing anything extreme. They eat whole, plant-forward meals in moderate portions. They stay socially engaged. They move naturally throughout the day. They align with the environment, honor rituals, and nurture purpose. Each of these habits is supported by science, from lower inflammation and better gut health to reduced cortisol and improved brain function. The takeaway is this: you don't need to live in Okinawa or grow up in Japan to benefit. These are human principles, not cultural exclusives. You can practice mindful eating by slowing down at your next meal. You can strengthen social bonds by reaching out to a friend or joining a community group. You can support your circadian rhythm by stepping outside into the morning light. You can begin to search for your Ikigai by asking, what is one thing that gives my day meaning, no matter how small? Here's my challenge to you. Pick just one of these tools and try it today. Maybe it's eating until you're just shy of full. Maybe it's walking outside after dinner. Maybe it's calling someone you care about. Anchor it as a daily ritual. See how your body and mind respond. Longevity is not about chasing more years, it's about filling the years you do have with strength, clarity, and connection. If you want to live not just long, but well, the blueprint is already here. And if this exploration has sparked something for you, I'd invite you to stay connected with this community. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you want more science-backed tools for living fully, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Together, we can build lives that are not just longer, but richer in every way. Another quiet but powerful thread running through Japan's longest-lived doctors and communities is their relationship with the environment. Health is not just what you eat. It's also where you live, how you move within that space, and how much time you spend connected to the natural world. In many Japanese villages, the rhythm of life is set by the land. People walk daily through winding paths, climb gentle hills, or work in their gardens. This isn't exercise in the way we often think of gyms or fitness classes. It's movement built naturally into the day. Neuroscience shows us that regular, low-intensity movement like walking or gardening doesn't just keep muscles strong, it regulates blood sugar, improves circulation, and even promotes neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells. Nature also regulates stress. Research out of Japan on Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, found that simply spending time in a natural setting lowers cortisol, slows the heart rate, and boosts immune activity. Doctors themselves in Japan often prescribe time in nature as part of treatment. Compare that with modern urban living, screens, artificial light, constant noise, and you begin to see the difference. There's also the design of Japanese homes and communities. Open windows, tatami mats, sliding doors, and garden courtyards invite sunlight, airflow, and greenery into everyday life. Small details like removing shoes indoors reduce pathogens. Even the tradition of seasonal eating reflects alignment with the environment, consuming what the land provides at its freshest. What's happening in the brain during all this is equally fascinating. Natural light calibrates your circadian rhythm, which governs everything from sleep to hormone regulation. The subtle, mindful awareness of seasonal shifts, like cherry blossoms in spring or the sound of cicadas in summer, keeps people mentally present. It reduces the kind of chronic low-grade stress that silently wears down health over decades. Here's the simple tool you can take. Don't think of movement and nature as optional wellness activities. Think of them as medicine. Build daily walking routes outdoors. Bring plants into your living space. Open windows. Notice the season you're in. By weaving the environment into your habits, you're recreating what Japan's oldest doctors have done instinctively for generations, living in rhythm with the natural world. Longevity in Japan isn't built on gyms, weight machines, or high-intensity routines. It comes from movement woven into daily life. In long-lived communities like Okinawa, people don't work out, they simply move often and naturally. Gardening is one of the most common activities. Tending to vegetables and herbs not only provides fresh food, but also keeps joints flexible, muscles engaged, and balance sharp. It's exercise disguised as necessity, with the added reward of connecting to the earth. Walking is another cornerstone. Narrow streets, compact neighborhoods, and local shops mean daily errands are done on foot. This constant, low-intensity activity is what modern science calls NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, the calories you burn through everyday movement. Studies show NEAT can be just as powerful for longevity as structured exercise. There's also posture and floor sitting. In many Japanese homes, people still sit on tatami mats instead of couches. Standing up and sitting down from the floor strengthens core muscles and improves balance, a key factor in preventing falls, which are a major risk for older adults in many countries. And let's not forget community movement. Group dances at festivals, morning radio calisthenics, and even tea ceremonies involve gentle, intentional movements that keep the body supple while reinforcing social bonds. Science is clear. Physical activity combined with social connection extends health span more than either alone. The takeaway is simple. You don't need a fitness plan that feels like punishment. Movement as medicine is about frequency, variety, and enjoyment. When activity is stitched into daily life, the body stays strong without forcing it. If there's one ritual almost every Japanese household shares, it's the daily act of brewing green tea. Not just as a drink, but as a pause. a moment to slow down, reset, and reconnect. Scientists who have studied longevity often point to this habit as one of the most consistent threads linking long-lived populations across Japan. But here's the thing, green tea isn't only about calm tradition. It's a scientifically validated tool for protecting the brain, the heart, and even your stress response. At the molecular level, green tea is packed with catechins, a group of powerful antioxidants. One of the most studied is EGCG, or epigallocatechin gallati. Research shows EGCG reduces oxidative stress, lowers inflammation, and even supports the health of blood vessels. Why does this matter for longevity? Because oxidative stress and vascular damage are two of the main drivers of aging-related diseases, from memory decline to heart disease. Drinking green tea daily is like adding a layer of cellular armor, but it doesn't stop there. Green tea also contains L-theanine, an amino acid that directly influences the brain. L-theanine promotes alpha brainwaves, the same patterns seen in states of calm focus like meditation. When combined with the moderate caffeine content in tea, the result is a unique effect, alert but relaxed. Neuroscientists call this calm attentiveness. It means you can concentrate without feeling jittery, and you can relax without losing clarity. Studies have shown that L-theanine combined with caffeine enhances working memory, speeds up reaction time, and reduces mental fatigue. That's not just helpful for performance in your 20s or 30s, it's a safeguard for maintaining cognitive sharpness into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. There's also a cardiovascular layer to this story. Regular green tea drinkers tend to have lower blood pressure and healthier cholesterol profiles. A large Japanese cohort study followed over 40,000 adults for more than a decade. Those who drank 5 or more cups of green tea per day had significantly lower risks of dying from cardiovascular disease compared to those who drank less. This isn't just correlation. The compounds in green tea directly influence the flexibility of blood vessels, making them more resilient against stress. Let's translate this into a simple protocol. If you want to use green tea as a tool, here's one approach. Start your morning with a cup of sencha or matcha instead of coffee. You'll get a gentler lift in energy without the sharp spike and crash of caffeine alone. In the afternoon, when focus tends to dip, a second cup can help reset both body and mind. If you're sensitive to caffeine, opt for hojicha, a roasted green tea with lower caffeine but similar benefits. The goal is not to force yourself to hit a number of cups, but to weave tea into your daily rhythm as both nourishment and ritual. Think of it this way, every sip is not just hydration, but an instruction to your nervous system. Catechins are signaling your cells to defend against damage. L-theanine is gently tuning your brain into balance. The act of pausing for tea is also telling your stress response to downshift. It's a layered effect, biochemical, neurological, and psychological, all converging in a simple daily practice. So ask yourself, how do you structure your pauses throughout the day? Because it's not only the food or drink that matters, but also the rhythm it creates. Green tea is one of those rare tools that supports both, and over the span of decades, that combination of cellular protection and mental balance may be one reason Japanese elders remain both sharp and serene well into their 90s and 100s. In Okinawa, when researchers first studied the diets of the longest-lived populations, they found something unexpected. The bulk of calories didn't come from rice, which many assume is the staple food of Japan, but from a humble, brightly colored root, the sweet potato. In fact, before the modernization of food supply chains, over half of the daily calories of Okinawan elders came from sweet potatoes, particularly the purple and orange varieties. That single observation is powerful because it points to how one simple, everyday food can dramatically shape longevity. So why sweet potatoes? To answer that, let's start with the brain. Every thought, every memory, every emotion requires energy, and glucose is the brain's preferred fuel. But not all glucose sources are equal. Highly refined carbohydrates flood the system quickly, leading to blood sugar spikes and crashes. That roller coaster stresses neurons, increases oxidative stress, and can accelerate aging. Sweet potatoes, on the other hand, provide slow-digesting carbohydrates wrapped in fiber. This creates a steady release of glucose, keeping the brain supplied with fuel without the damaging peaks and valleys. There's also something unique in the pigments. Purple sweet potatoes are rich in anthocyanins, the same antioxidants found in blueberries. These compounds cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce inflammation in neural tissue. Studies on anthocyanins have shown protective effects against age-related cognitive decline, helping preserve memory circuits and synaptic plasticity. To put it simply, eating purple sweet potatoes is like giving your neurons a shield against the wear and tear of time. And the benefits go far beyond the brain. Sweet potatoes are packed with beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A, supporting immune defense and eye health. The fiber content helps regulate digestion and feed beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn influences everything from mood to metabolic control. In fact, research on centenarian populations consistently highlights a diet rich in prebiotic fiber as a cornerstone of long-term resilience. Let's pause here and make this practical. If you want to adopt this principle in your own life, the tool is simple. Replace one refined carbohydrate in your diet with a serving of sweet potato. Instead of white bread at lunch, try roasted sweet potato rounds. Swap out pasta for mashed sweet potato on the side. Even better, choose purple sweet potatoes when available. They may not be as common in every grocery store, but Asian and international markets often carry them. The goal is not to eat massive portions, but to make them a regular staple, a background rhythm of nourishment that supports your physiology day after day. Another layer to consider is the psychological effect of food choices. When people eat sweet potatoes regularly, they often report fewer cravings later in the day. That's because steady blood sugar stabilizes dopamine pathways in the brain. When your reward circuits are balanced, you're less likely to experience the mid-afternoon crash that drives you toward quick sugar fixes. In neuroscience terms, sweet potatoes help smooth the dopaminergic landscape, which supports better self-regulation, focus, and mood. Here's a simple framework to apply. Think in terms of food as instruction. Every bite of sweet potato sends molecular instructions to slow inflammation, to fuel neurons steadily, to nurture gut microbes. Over time, those small, repeated instructions add up to major changes in how your body and brain age. The people of Okinawa didn't think of it as a longevity hack. For them, it was just dinner. But from a modern scientific perspective, it's a cornerstone of why so many of them remain sharp and active well past 100. So ask yourself, what's one meal this week where you can trade a refined carb for sweet potato? It's a small swap, but repeated over years, it might just be one of the simplest tools to extend not just your lifespan, but your health span.